I am live. And as you can see, unlike what I normally do, I am just doing the webcam thing. And I wanted to create a video basically for my subscribers. This video is for you guys who keep coming back again and again and again to just hang out and support me in my efforts to kind of be a one-man animation studio, you know, and trying to make the world just a little bit better place with my creativity. But in recent weeks and months, I've spoken quite a bit about launching a crowdfund for the show, Salt and Light. I'll say that if you have no idea what I'm talking about, let me throw this out here, right here at the top, just so that those who may be new to the channel or watching this, just to get you right out of the gate knowing what the heck I'm even talking about. Here's what I'm doing. I have written and directed a kind of a westernized anime type 2D animated cartoon show. And where that show is at in terms of its production pathway is that the first 2 episodes are written. They're mostly animated, so that's what you see here. We've got, this is actually episode 2, and a lot of my time recently has been spent basically punching up and improving the shots from episode 1. Okay, so then there's this section of episode 2 that still has to be animated. But basically there's about 45 minutes of animation done. Okay, this is the state of the project. I feel quite good about the project going forward, just because the distribution side of the equation has kind of already been addressed, because I have a good relationship with a film distributor who has distributed my live action feature films. And if you have no idea what that's about, you can look me up on IMDb, David Matthew Weiss, and you will see my filmography, and you'll kind of see what that's all about. Okay, so I kind of made a list. Of the things that are on my mind that I want to share with you guys, my regular subscribers, so that when the content that I'm throwing out there begins to change a little bit, you'll kind of understand why. Okay, so I think those of you who do come around as often as you do will probably appreciate this, and I'll try to keep it concise. I don't intend to rant here for an hour and a half. Hopefully we'll keep it down to a very manageable time frame. So here's the deal. What I've done for the last really year, as I've been learning the craft of animation, and you know, lots of missteps along the way, one of the things I've really done is made it a point not to do too much curated content here. It's kind of like the Truman Show of animation, where I'm just live streaming whatever I'm doing that day and talking about that, as well as whatever else happens to be on my mind that day. And it's a lot of fun. And again, this is why I wanted to make this video today, is because you guys, you know who you are. Hey, Dead Pianist, you're one of them. You're one of the people I'm talking about. You guys who keep coming around all the time, you know, you're my peeps, at least on YouTube. You know, it's a neat little community of people. And the truth is, a lot of you guys, I don't really know why you're here. I don't know what you're looking for. Okay? But as I've considered this idea of going into a crowdfunding situation, I've really done a lot of soul searching. And if you guys looked through my journals, you would see page after page after page of me just unpacking not only plans and goals and methodologies and lessons learned, but I guess lessons learned are a big part. And a lot of things in my life have all coalesced to this moment. um, on both a professional and a creative and a personal. Hey, Varya, welcome to the stream today. Okay, so on a, what did I say? A professional level, a creative level, and on a personal level. And there's a lot of things that I've been learning and kind of going through in terms of how I've looked at. And I don't want to belabor this, but basically, when you get to be my age, you sort of look at how through your life, either fear or ego have informed the decisions you've made. And I've just really felt like I could do better, in a lot of ways in my life. And there's a lot of good there. There's a lot of good stuff. But as I've really thought about where I want to go next with Salt and Light, with the production, and where I want to go next with my life in general and with my business, one thing that's really jumped out at me is I need to kind of get back to my roots a bit in terms of, I'll explain that here. One thing that's been going on is that I have multiple friends and advisors, people I respect, who have really been looking at what I'm doing and strongly encouraging me to work smarter. Okay, one of the things you guys have heard me say here is that I've made like no effort whatsoever to come up with really good descriptions, hashtags, even thumbnails. I mean, I do thumbnails on the videos, the live streams and everything here, basically stealing a screenshot from an earlier shot in the show before I go ahead and live stream on whatever I'm working on that day. So I haven't been completely lax in terms of, hey, Tom Doing Art, I'm glad you're here, sir. I appreciate you being here. But again, I've got multiple friends who've been encouraging me to work smarter with my YouTube content, looking at what I'm doing and going, geez, dude, there's a lot you could be accomplishing here that you're not. And I think that they're right. And under a lot of circumstances, I would hear that advice and I would say, that's great and I appreciate it, but I'm not necessarily going to put it to action at this point. And that's kind of what I've actually done for quite a while here. And part of that is because I've spent the last year learning the craft. The craft of animation is, there's a lot to learn. So there's some things I do pretty well, as far as, writing screenplays and editing and to a lesser degree probably writing the music. You can hear it in the trailer video that you see when you come to my channel. But animation in general is, a pretty big topic, and there's a lot to learn. And it's been a really fun ride. But now that I'm kind of coming to this sort of, turning the corner a little bit on where we're going forward, I was reading some stuff online from a guy named Julian Shapiro, who I really like. So he's got a site that kind of focuses on growth marketing. Okay, a lot of best practices about growth marketing, and literally everything that are those best practices, at least in regards to YouTube, I have not done. Not really. And the interesting thing is where it would lead you to is more curated content. More curated content meaning edited content, more purposeful content. When you think about training material or how to do this or how to do that, that's what I would consider more curated content, more edited content. And by the way, to be pragmatic about it, the videos that get the most views by far on this channel are that. They're the videos that are, specifically about solving specific problems, using OpenTunes or Krita or whatever. The thing I want you guys to understand is this is where I come from. This is truly where I come from. I've told you guys at times that I was literally the first guy on the planet to create a Blender training video. And I was. Back in the year, I think it was 2000. It might have been 99, but it's probably 2000, where we created. So Dead Pianist, the answer to your question is I'm probably not going to be streaming daily. Okay, but I'll get to that here shortly. Like what's the plan going forward as far as streaming? One reason for that is that the actual work that I'm doing is probably going to change somewhat. And some of it probably would be interesting to you guys who like to just kind of look over my shoulder. And I don't have a problem with doing that. I don't have a problem with just kind of, like I said, being the Truman Show of animation or whatever. But where I come from is essentially short form content. You know, that's what I did back in the day when I started in video back in the 90s, and we were doing some stuff that wasn't short form, like dog sports coverage, you know, 3-camera coverage of events and things like that. But definitely quite a bit in the area of training videos and things like that. What makes that interesting is basically the sales and product focus. Okay, the reality is that, and I'm kind of jumping a bit on my list, but the reality is that the last 30 years, what's paid my bills is essentially intellectual property. Usually it's commercial. It's for commercial clients for whom I'm doing providing various services related to their marketing, right? But it's media stuff. It's voiceover, you know, it's little audio programs, and obviously there's been a lot of video and whatnot like that. And then obviously in the 2000s, I dovetailed into filmmaking, right? And that's done okay. But what paid the bills was sales. You know, that's what I started doing. And I worked really hard in the early 90s to build up my client list. And essentially, I'm just going to say that I may be spitballing here, but 2 to 8 years of sales effort pretty much paid all the bills for the next 20 years after that. Is the truth, you know? And it's been I'm wonderfully privileged that I was able to do that, right? But I'm at a point right now, because of everything I've learned and getting ready to sort of bring this new product to market, being the show. I'm also really thinking about this growth marketing stuff and whether what I'm doing here is necessarily all that smart. Right? Because, in other words, I feel like I could, you know, the way I wrapped this up when I was making my notes is probably the way I should have started. I said, I'm open to ideas and I'll do my best for you guys, okay? But what I want you guys to do is I want you to help me help you, okay? I want to help you achieve your goals as I work to achieve mine. I don't know what your goals are. Hey, Nutgut, good to see you, friend. I don't know what your goals are. You guys don't, frankly, say a lot in the comments and whatnot about like why you're here or what you want to learn. Now, recently, it's been starting to happen more, where people are mentioning things because you guys have been trying to help me as I think about things like crowdfunding and it's kind of like the idea of what are you paying for, you know? When I think about crowdfunding, it's a little demoralizing to me. It's a little deflating is probably a better word, because I don't want to, the idea of selling something is way more appealing to me than the idea of just asking someone to give me money. I like the idea of people rooting for me. I think it's great, and I appreciate that, right? But, you know, as I say, kind of where I came from is about creating intellectual property products, you know, and or services. So that's just part of the puzzle. So I just mention that because it is, in fact, you know, what I do and have done for a long time, way before I was doing animation, you know. The problem with live streaming in that regard is this. When you look at growth marketing, one thing I read in this, I guess you'd call it a blog post or a sort of an online book, really, from Julian Shapiro, is that he said that, you know what, there's a myth out there that people have a short attention span. It's not that people have a short attention span, it's that people have a short consideration span, which means you can have long-form content, like Joe Rogan has a 3-hour podcast. I've certainly had people that sit here through 2 or 3 hours of live streaming. But that first minute, if you're trying to grow the thing, the first minute kind of matters a lot. And when you're live streaming, most of the people that see it, or many, at least if they're watching it live, never see the first minute, right? So you don't actually have a way to implement some of these best practices and test them. So an example of how you might test something is you might have content that you describe and have a thumbnail and maybe some hashtags or whatever in two completely different ways that maybe you actually load up on two completely different channels. Well, okay, if you're going to go down that road on YouTube, and I think it's probably a good place to do it because I like YouTube as a platform, you can't really do that on a channel where you're live streaming, because if you're going to launch a new channel under a new brand, you need to rebuild the viewership and there's a limit on how long the videos can even be. So you're pretty much locked into what I'm calling curated content when you're starting a new channel. You don't have any choice because you have to earn the right to live stream by gaining subscribers and viewership, right? So in other words, so now there's all of a sudden a problem. Now, of course, you could do both. I could keep live streaming every day while launching another channel that's maybe a channel just called Salt and Light, maybe a channel just called oh brother, I mean, there's so many things that you could do to test it. You know, speed paint. You know, in fact, one of the things I'm gonna implement immediately is I'm going through some of my past live streams and I'm saying, well, look, what are the best scenes in my show? Well, why don't we take the live streams from those really good scenes, turn them into a speed paint, and then invite people. You know, they can watch it in 6 minutes or whatever, and invite them if you want to watch the long form version. Here's the link. But that's one example. It's probably a pretty good example of working smart to build the base that I just simply haven't done. And there's some reasons why. Now, I'm going to look at the comments here for crowdfunding rewards. One of the best ones would be a manga comic of the first episode. I agree. Digital and print. So thank you, Nutgut, for that suggestion. It's a good one. And by the way, I pay attention to these suggestions because you know, a few of you just in the last couple of weeks especially have weighed in with ideas just like that, and it's really helpful because it tells me what do you want to see? What do you want to buy? You know, what's worth giving you in exchange for a contribution? The statistics don't lie. Okay? In successful crowdfunds for projects like mine, the lion's share of the contributions are either $25 or $100. It's one or the other. Now, there's a wide range of things that people give, but you know, I want to really make sure there's a value there, that there's value there. And then for me as a businessman, as a guy who is kind of like a sales-oriented kind of person, I ask myself, well, if you're gonna create this reward, just follow my logic here, if you would, guys. If you're going to create this reward and give it in exchange for a contribution, then why the hell aren't you selling that product now? Right? Why aren't you finding out ahead of time that this is in fact something people want? You know, whether it's a training course or, you know, whatever it might be. So, and if you're going to do that and it's generating revenue, then why do you need to necessarily do the crowdfund? Well, these things all work together. This is why I've said in recent live streams, I've said the likelihood is this. And I'll explain a little more why. Well, I guess I'll jump here on my list. I already crowdfunded a movie. Okay, the last movie I wrote and directed, I crowdfunded it. And the crowdfund only earned $2,000. And half of that came from one guy. Okay? Well, that's not a very good result. Not even close. I mean, $2,000 is better than zero, but it's basically a pretty crappy result from a crowdfund. Well, that's because I didn't do all the things I'm talking about here in terms of building. I have a bug on my mic. A bug? As in insect? I hope not. I don't think there's a bug on my mic. Anyway, So yeah, pretty bad result. And I think the significant point about that is that other than you guys, okay, yeah, it's gone now apparently. Other than my 2,600 YouTube subscribers, my social media presence is absolutely no different now than it was, whatever it was, 5 years ago when I crowdfunded the movie. So there's really no good reasons here to expect an amazing result, okay, without changing something, right? And by the way, if you also look at the best practices recommended by platforms like Indiegogo, they tell you, one of the things they suggest, for example, is having an email list of 10,000 names. Well, I don't have like a gnat. Okay, guys, I'm gonna look at this. I do not see a bug. Tom, are you messing with me? I'm looking at the video, and I'm not seeing a bug. Is it on the end? What a bizarre thing to have happen. Well, that's a great example of the things that can go haywire when you're live streaming. And it could be, frankly, friends, yeah, okay, it could be you guys, because this is a kind of a homemade, yeah, this is like a, right, there you go. So it's like a homemade pop filter. And usually you don't get to see me this big, so this probably happens all the time, and you've just never noticed it before. Do I need to switch back to this screen? I don't think so. Okay, so as I'm looking at my list, one thing that was jumping out to me is that on balance, I'm not really positioned much better now than I was then. And if we look at the expected, I have some expected projections on the back end from the show of what is estimated to be its earning power. And basically, it's not bad, but it's not great, right? The projections are, it could be a bird fed. Now, that's a very real possibility. I'm kind of weirded out, though, that you guys are seeing that because, oh, yeah, that's what that is. That's a, yep, right there. I see what you're talking about. Yep. That is a remnant of one of Zuko's feathers, I would assume. You'd be amazed how much an African gray parrot gets feathers all through the house. So, long story short is I expect to be doing more curated content. I expect to be spending more time editing. I expect to be spending more time trying to do a better job of targeting, my content based on what has been successful for me here, as well as what's worked for others. So, if Ed today is out there, I'm not going to lie to you, Ed. I'm gonna when I do a speed draw, yeah, that would be cool, Max. That would be cool if it just right into my mouth. That'd be great. So if I do a speed draw, I'm looking at Ed Tadeo's speed draws, and I'm going, what's he doing in terms of how the title he put on it or whatever? Because I got a lot of content sitting on the shelf, largely from the live streams, that really could be better curated or edited down into a format that more people are gonna maybe be open to. And again, just give them a link to the long form version if you want to sit through the live stream. But for me, I thought it was kind of important to share these thoughts with you guys, because as your helper, right? As your Max, how about no speed draw? Is that what you're saying there? How about no speed draw? How about don't do that? How about a scene that's fun to watch? Yeah, well, that is what we talked about the other day, is taking about a 2-minute segment from the show, and let's not get fixated on the speed draw thing here, guys. The idea wasn't to get fixated on that. The idea was to use that as just one example of the kind of content that might have broader appeal. Okay, let's put it that way. Broader appeal. Something that tens of thousands of people tend to watch on YouTube versus 100. Okay? So yeah, I don't want you guys to think that that's like where I'm going to be spending all my time. But for sure, probably curated content, what I call curated content. In other words, people have asked about doing a Patreon or doing a course like a Udemy course. Is again that's what I used to do. That's where I started on YouTube. Was doing that type of stuff. So play on the monkey. Well, it's funny you should say that, Max, because the first scene that I thought, well, let's go ahead and do that, is in fact a scene where the monkey grabs the bag out of the guy's pocket. Right? I think it's one of the better shots in the show. It looks really good, and it's kind of entertaining. And see, like, if you watch that video, like when I release it, it'll probably take me a couple days to knock it out. But I want to do all the things that I really probably should have been doing all along. Like, there's a bunch of best practices. The teaser at the start, the logo, the things that package your content so it just has a little broader based appeal. Use the chat window after to find these clips during editing. Yes, that's helpful. So anyway, yeah, I think that's really all I wanted to say here today was that I would think that while the sort of look over the artist's shoulder idea when I'm just kind of getting work done is a cool thing. I still like it. And I'm sure, and thank you, Sifter, for that comment. I'm sure you're correct. I wanted to talk to you guys because for me, mentally, it's a bit of a reboot, but it's a bit of a return to where I came from, and I feel pretty good about it. Like, this is what I want to get back to what actually worked pretty well in the past in that regard, and help to create other opportunities, as time went by, of course. So the crux of it all was this. And I wrote this down because it's really the way I feel about it is help me help you achieve your goals as I work to achieve mine. Right? I don't know what you guys want. You guys have given me some suggestions, and if I go with it, somebody the other day suggested like a Udemy course or something like that. I've done quite a lot of that, and I've said repeatedly here on the live streams that that's precisely what I've chosen not to do. But frankly, it's probably an important part of my path going forward, and it would probably be more helpful, frankly, to a lot of people like you guys. So if you wanna weigh in here on the chat as I take a drink of what today is my tasty beverage, Elysian Space Dust, a very fruity kind of brewski. Or you could tell me I'm full of it if you want. You want to improve your own cartoon series. Good. That's not what your audience wants. Your audience wants fun clips. I think you're correct, Max. I think you're correct. And so, as far as the people that are sort of part of this small community that comes together on a regular basis, soak up the experience. Okay, good. Right on. Motivation. Okay. And curated content can go a long way towards helping with that, Tom, because it allows you to look. You guys have to sit through a lot of crap. I mean, you guys have to sit through a lot of me rambling about things. Hell, I'm doing it now, but in order to get to the good stuff. So you kind of hit upon what I'm trying to say here is I'm seeing that I need to do a better job at giving you the good stuff. And again, it's what I used to do all the time. Is, hey, Blifton, good to see you. I haven't seen you here in a while. I think I saw you on Darren T's stream the other day. So I'm not saying that I'm going to create a course on how to animate with Krita. Or certainly OpenTunes. I think probably Darren's got that covered. And your comments, thank you, Mikhail and Sifter. your comments are also making me think, that to a degree, there's a lot of value to the unvarnished experience. Hey, Maria, the unvarnished, the Truman Show of animation, where you're just seeing the guy just do the real work, and the problems you bump into. But again, like I said, I feel like I could do a better job, and doing a better job is conducive to where I need to go. It isn't just a question of what I want to do. It's a question of where I really need to go in order to get the sort of awareness, and penetration that goes with successfully getting these types of products out there. There's a lot of things that have gone through my mind about this. There's other things that, when I was doing the Akari anime thing, that is a really cool show, right? The Fan Futurama thing is a really cool concept. And so I'm just thinking out loud about this. Maybe there's some ways some of those things can begin to tick forward sort of in tandem with everything else that I'm doing. The alternative to what I'm talking about today would be this. Essentially, or at least in my view, would be a race to the finish, just get the show done and get it out there. There is, I agree with Max. Regular scheduling helps. I agree with that too, Blifton. If you schedule a live stream where it's a little more purposeful, my live streams have been better when I've had this. When I've had a list of what I was going to cover, and I basically spent about 20 minutes before I live stream planning it in advance. Those tend to be better live streams. Okay, so I could definitely do a better job of that. But I mean, seriously, guys, I can't tell you enough. I really appreciate the way you're weighing in here with comments, because I'm similarly a do-it-all-myself animation guy using OTs, so I'm picking up tips. Okay, cool. So Nutgut, to your point, would you want content that trims out the fat and just gets right down to the various tips or techniques? Like one of my one of my best viewed videos on YouTube is basically setting up a rig, a bone rig with the plastic tool and parenting and stuff in OpenTunes. And it was done like a year and a half ago. Very, very, very highly viewed video, Ironically, my actual best viewed video in recent months has had nothing to do with animation. And Blifton's saying Discord. So you're saying be more. Now, YouTube polls, I like that idea. Thank you, Brew. I haven't seen you around here, but I appreciate that. Yes. And that's what I'm talking about. I've been looking at YouTube and again, kind of looking at best practices, and I'm going, geez, dude, you've done nothing to engage the community other than live streaming. Right? So you don't know what people want because you haven't asked them, but more importantly, maybe I haven't given you guys a good way to tell me. Because if I live stream for 3 hours and somewhere around 1 hour and 20 minutes, I ask you guys, hey, by the way, what do you want to see here? You would have to sit through the 3-hour live stream to know that I even asked the question, right? So that means I haven't done my job. And how can I expect hey, Amar, so how can I expect to expand my reach if I don't do a better job of helping you guys, finding out what you guys want from me? And obviously I'm not going to do everything anybody ever wants, but where the two overlap, let's take advantage of that. Okay, so this is great. Golden Slime, thanks for being here, dude. Dead Pianist. Nowadays people are spending lots of time on Discord. So you guys are saying just be there, like just show up and kind of chit chat a little here and there on Discord? I mean, I've kind of thought that. I will say that, so I want to look at Max's comment here because Max is always, so Max always has really strong opinions and he's usually got great points too. I don't always agree with Max, but I always appreciate his opinions. So he says, you cannot do it with this audience. People like here are mostly creators like me or Maria. I agree with you. I've been thinking the same thing. Now, it doesn't mean you have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. You can still give people the more broad-reaching content while at the same time having, periodic live streams where we're just all kind of bopping around as a community. And frankly, the community aspect's cool. You know, it's fun. You know, it's fun to hear from you guys and be able to sit here and talk to you, although sometimes I wonder why the heck you'd want to listen to me, but I appreciate it. So title and thumbnail should be such that people know exactly what's going to happen in the video. Okay, I'll give that one some thought. You can have Discord running all day in the background. Okay, so the thing about Discord, this is my opinion right now, and it could change tomorrow, okay? This has been my opinion about Discord for me. It happened the other day when I got into a discussion with Tenpence. You guys, you got to realize this. I do like to help people, okay? If somebody asks me a direct question, I tend to really try to answer it, right? And so there's a danger with social networking that I've bumped into where if I go on Discord and someone does ask me a question, all of a sudden 2 hours just went by. And, you know, and so the engagement part of it is really, really cool, but it can come at an extremely high time cost where so I am not going to say that I'm good at managing that yet. And so where Discord fits into my plans going forward, I'm not sure, although for sure the people here on the live stream, that seems to be where everybody gathers. So, you know, how can you argue with that? If that's where people go, it's where people go. So let me see here. So since some people, I've got 11 concurrent viewers right now, which shockingly is more than normal. I'll have another drink of my tasty beverage. So I guess to maybe wrap it up, I'm going to restate what my objective was here in saying this today for those who weren't around when I started, and then just do a brief recap of what I'm thinking about. Okay. The driver, as I said, for you guys, not for the audience I don't have yet. Okay. What I'm saying right now is, it kind of is for them, but this statement to help me help you achieve your goals as I work to achieve mine seems like that makes a lot of sense to me. Like that's a good thing to do. Certainly every time I've ever made a sale or got a client or made anyone happy for any reason, that's how it's happened. That's what I did. You know, I found out what people needed and then I solved their problem, you know, and I enjoy doing that. And the thing I added to that is I'm open to ideas and I promise I'll do my best. Right? Okay, so many live streams you've done, potential audience comes, visits with your channel, just gets overwhelmed. There are many live streams you've done where the potential audience comes. Yes, thank you. Bro, I think you're right. I think you're right, Brew. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Shorts will help. Okay, that's what I've been thinking. Clear, concise views, well-formed, and yet open to discussion from your audience. Yeah, I'm always open. I'm always open. I mean, sometimes I'll disagree, but I'm always happy to look. I don't think people lie, okay? If somebody tells me from their heart, this is what I think, they're not lying. I mean, they're telling you the truth. In fact, the thing that we miss in the socio-political conversation is that oftentimes the more impassioned someone is, the more sincere they are. You know, they might be uninformed. But they're not lying. If they are lying, they don't realize they're lying, right? So everybody's opinion matters. At the very least, you can make people immediately aware of what you're streaming. Okay, so Blifton, that gets back to my tick list here of the things I shared when I first started today. Is some of those best practices, like thumbnails, like descriptions, like having a logo that I really need to put together for whatever, you know, Blended Planet animation is, but that captures what you're going to get out of this video and does it concisely and does it well in the first few seconds so that people know what they're in for and then they can make a choice if they want to hang in there and stay with it. So write short scripts for 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, so now Max is making an interesting idea. Start writing short scripts for 10 to 15 second animations. Cyanide and Suicide have nice short clips. The format gets shared. You need shares. Absolutely, that is true. So now, okay, yeah, let me make a note of that. So if you guys will bear with me, I'm actually going to jot a few things down here because I'm I want to see, can someone else weigh in on what Max is saying? Okay, so in other words, I was talking about curated content in the sense of maybe like a speed draw, for example. That was the example I gave. Okay, but you're typically with something like that, you're talking about what does that consist of structurally? Logo, maybe a quick teaser to say what's coming. You got the speed draw. Well, actually, you have the final animation of the shot. Then you got the speed draw. Then you got the final animation of the shot that's probably going to run 2 or 3 times. And then you're going to have some links that say, hey, if you want to watch the live stream where I covered the whole deal, you know, click here or something like that. Okay. Well, that's still a lot longer than what I think Max is talking about. Max is saying, Dave, why aren't you doing like a little 15-second, you know, a really sharp-looking 15-second, even if it's a pencil test. Max, if I'm wrong, if I'm misinterpreting here, just put something in the comments and tell me. But I think what you're saying is, hey, Yvette, it's been a long time. Thank you for being here. I'm talking about changes to my YouTube channel and how I can improve, do my job better so that I get closer to my goals, which of course involves, I will do that. I will do that. But what you're, okay, so I'll do that right now. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to go ahead and look at that right now. So it's cyanide and happiness. So Max is saying, look at what cyanide and happiness is doing, because that gets a lot of shares. Ah, okay, so that's Explosum Entertainment. Okay, and that is really well done stuff. Now, I'm going to turn the sound down so you guys aren't having to listen to it. I'm looking at it on the other screen, which I guess I could put up here. So I'm looking at this. Cyanide and happiness. Okay, yeah. Super short, super concise. A lot of entertainment value packed into a really short space. I think that the fact that it's puppet animation and that's not really my style is irrelevant. I think Max's point stands, and I've thought about that. So if we go over here, actually, so I'll show you guys. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. When I look over here at the show, I'm looking through the show, and I said, you know what? Here we go. So this sequence right here, I said, you know what? This is one of the better looking shots in the show. And it's kind of interesting because it's Krita, Blender, and the end result looks pretty sharp, right? And so I thought, well, why don't we take that? And I look back in my live streams, and it's like there's this hour-and-a-half long live stream where I was doing all the work on these shots, right? So if I post a speed draw of the process of creating this one, okay, and then at the end provide a link to the long form version of it, which is of course already on my channel, plus tease that, hey, now come back for the similar video about this one, because this part of the shot, I'm kind of looking at this as a single little sequence here, but this part of the shot isn't included in that. So you kind of have a natural way to tease the next one, right? That's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. You know, that's where my head's at in terms of the type of thing I could do better. Because if I get that stuff out there, as you guys are, I think, agreeing with me, that would maybe expand my reach. Okay, so now I'm going to go back up north here on the comments here just a bit. And did I see Darren here? Did Darren show up? I didn't. I thought somebody said, hey, Darren, but I don't. Oh, there he is. Hey, Darren, I see you are here. Okay, so I'm basically talking about growth marketing and making some changes to what I do. In other words, not just kind of willy-nilly live streaming all, you know, for 2 hours every day or whatever. I don't do it every day, obviously, but what I'm thinking is maybe less of that. Now, YouTube Shorts, as far as just the animation, you know, little gags or whatever, could definitely be helpful. That's definitely something to look at. But I like what Bruce's saying. And by the way, BRUHH, I I don't think I've ever seen you here before. I think you've probably been lurking and maybe watching some live streams, but haven't weighed in. So I just want to let you know, thank you for your thoughts here today, because I like what you're saying. It's quite helpful. Because I that's one of the things I was thinking about. On the community tab, you've got the ability to do polls and things like that. And I've spent like no effort at all, like grokking out how to go ahead and use those, or, you know, if there's any setup required or any of that kind of stuff. So super short, but with your style. Right on. So as far as the spectrum of content length, what you're really saying is stuff that's less than 30 seconds. And then I was talking about stuff that's maybe 8 minutes, 6-8 minutes. And then, of course, you've got the live stream stuff. And then in my vision, in concert with that, would be promoting from within those videos as they gain viewership, and maybe integrating with it some paid content, like a course. You know, I mean, God, I know everything there is to know about animating in Krita, and I don't even know if anybody's done that yet. And the truth of the matter is, when I was doing my Blender training videos, okay, so this is 20 years ago, but when I did Blender training videos, basically it would take 2 or 3 days to create like an hour-long, really, really packed training video. You know, I was pretty good at that, and they sold well, you know, back then. And I almost feel like I'm kind of cheating people that I don't create that kind of content, because so Dead Pianist is given the other side of the argument, and I think it's a legitimate side. I said a little while ago that the opposite of everything I'm talking about here today would be to go, man, I'm just going to race to the finish. You know, I'm gonna race to the finish to get the show out and get some traction that way. And I think that's legitimate. I don't have any doubt. Like, from a crowdfunding standpoint, as I mentioned earlier, I crowdfunded my last movie and it only made $2,000. And that's because I have no social presence. Okay? It was predicated on basically people who are already aware of my work and, you know, social contacts on Facebook or whatever. So the result was okay, but it was basically pretty lackluster. Certainly wasn't what you would call underwriting the cost of making the movie. Not even close. You know, so my expectation, getting back to crowdfunding specifically, would be this. What's actually going to happen is, if I launch something, it's going to do a little something. It's not going to do great. If I work really hard and don't do anything on the show, but basically I'm just Mr. Social Guy for 60 days, then maybe it'll do a little bit better. But my suspicion is, I'll get back to your question here in a minute, Darren. My suspicion is what'll happen is the show will get released. It'll get some traction because the distribution side of it will be done reasonably well. And then, for the second episode, or maybe getting some traction towards funding the whole series, that it'll go up over time. Maybe a lot. Which means, that actually happened. There's I almost hate to get into this, but because in my former life, I was known as a creator of quote unquote Christian films. Okay, at this point in my life, I don't have any desire to create Christian films. Okay, I still identify as a Christian, but in a kind of unconventional way, and I don't really, making overtly faith-based content is not what I'm about. I don't want to do it. I've done it. There's even some ideas in those movies that I kind of regret, putting out there that I would change if I could, So, however, having said that, there's a show out right now called The Chosen. The Chosen. And The Chosen was created by a guy who was essentially a failed filmmaker. And what happened was, as a last-ditch effort on his career, what he did was he released the first episode of this show, The Chosen, for free. He just released it wherever he released it. I don't know where he released it. But once he released it, people really grabbed it and said, well, this is really good. And it was after it was actually already out that it began to get some traction. And now they're crowdfunded. Now they're funded through the next dozen episodes or whatever, and at a budget of like $2 million per episode. So it's gone insane, but he had to let it out first, so it got some traction. People saw that, yeah, this show is pretty good, or whatever. Okay, so your daughter looked young. She may help you with memes. Yes, that is true. She's better at that stuff than I am, for sure. Start writing these shorts. If you wait for the last minute to write 20 of them. Okay, Darren. So you asked the question, why? The question for why is this. And it speaks to why I'm doing this video right now. I'm doing this video right now because what I have here on YouTube is a very small community, okay, of very loyal followers who tune in and watch my live streams, and it's basically the same people who show up all the time. Frankly, that's a cool thing. But at the same time, I don't have the kind of reach that I feel like I should have in order to best support where I'm going in my life. Not just, in other words, Salt and Light is just one thing. It's one project, and it's taken up the focus as I've been learning and developing it. And I'm very enthusiastic about its prospects. But in the total picture of where I'm going in my life and career as a creator, I'm not sure that, that's really not kind of the whole story. And I haven't, and obviously I've been talking about crowdfunding. I haven't done a great job of laying the groundwork for a successful crowdfund, right? Which is why I've kept delaying. So I keep delaying. But the more I've thought pragmatically about these things, the more I've thought about my roots, where I come from in the beginning, where I was, I created training videos. I created edited content a lot more than, just live streaming, which is great. I enjoy live streaming and all the rest. But I haven't done I just refer to it as best practices. I'm studying growth marketing and how, testing, A/B testing, of content, to, sort of pre-sales or pre-testing to figure out what works, what resonates with people, what sort of graphics, headlines, descriptions, tags, all those things that together help you do what you're trying to do on YouTube, to be a YouTube creator and actually make it a viable, life and business. So let me back up here a little bit. So I hope, does that kind of make sense, Darren? Does that answer your question? So I don't want to make it sound like I'm abandoning I'm not abandoning anything. I'm not abandoning my channel, or I'm not abandoning Salt and Light. It's totally where my focus is. But I feel like I'm doing a crappy job. As a YouTube creator, I'm doing a pretty bad job. Pretty awful, actually. What promotional materials have you been putting out to test the interest for this product? What promotion materials have you been putting out to test the interest for this product? Well, it's kind of a good question because the answer is very little. I mean, if you're talking about I think, look at what Amar's asking. What Amar's asking speaks right to why I'm doing this video today. The answer is none. Zero. I haven't done it. I mean, if you really want to go back in time, the market positioning for Salt and Light in general is reasonably well informed because it's coming straight from the horse's mouth of film distribution from somebody who has familiarity with what is selling in the marketplace into the standard platforms like Tubi and all the rest. And so initially when I came up with Salt and Light, the whole basis of it was a script I had written many years earlier and had set aside, as I was doing other things, and it was a conversation with my friend Dave. His name's Dave too, and where he said, man, when I'm looking at the numbers for what's selling, kind of sort of similar to what you're talking about doing, it seems like it's a viable idea and that it would be a good time to do it. You know, to you know, and there's a lot of things when you think about, like you guys are talking about short form content, little funny animation things, you know, that you know, whether it's gags or whether it's in all different kinds of styles either. You know, I'm working a pretty narrow style right now. I love that stuff. I think it's great. I've mentioned and now of course his name escapes me again, but there's a guy that was on the live stream the other day that was a really great, really good animator, and his stuff is just like that. It's really funny, you know, a lot of little surprises, you know, in the animation and stuff like that. So, but the answer, Amar, is just about nothing. What I've done is what you see here. Okay? And so you are speaking right to the problem. The problem is that I've got to expand my reach. And okay, so let me put it this way. Boy, it's taken me a long time to crystallize what I'm trying to say here. If I'm gonna do that, I want to sell you something. Okay? I want to create something that is of real value that people will really truly benefit from. You know? I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, right? I'm figuring that out. Yes, Full Chain is what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's right. Right. Super talented and just cuts right to the chase of what's thoroughly entertaining. I have no doubt that a year from now the guy's going to have tens of thousands of subs. Just because the stuff's good. You know, the stuff's entertaining. It is what it is. I don't think what I'm doing here is that entertaining. So that's, again, why I wanted to make this video, is because for this tiny community, it is important. And it is valuable, and it's kind of fun. Right? But it is not, it certainly has limits in terms of how it can move me towards where I've got to get to. And if it was going to, it would have by now. Right? So the growth curve on somebody who wants to look over someone's shoulder and watch them and animate and make all the mistakes and fight with the software and all the rest. You know, that, for me, the reason I started doing that is because it's what I wanted to see. Okay? But I also recognize the fact that very few people want to see that. Very few people want to sit through it. A lot of people probably go to my videos, they watch it for about a minute and a half, and they go, oh, you know, it's kind of interesting. And they may even skip through a little bit to see if there's something that grabs them. And if there's not, they go on to something else. It's perfectly understandable. Hell, it's what I do. You know? It's what I do. So I think short form content related to what you want to do that can be done efficient and effective. Okay, so let me wrap up today by saying this. Okay? If I look at my friends and advisors that have been talking to me about, you know, hey Dave, by the way, you could be doing a lot. I mean, like, you got some good stuff here, but you're not even beginning to tap into what you could be doing. Those people, Amar, what I've been thinking myself, what my partner Valerie says, everybody's saying the same thing to me right now. Do you realize this, guys? And I'm glad, for that reason, I'm glad I did this video today, because everybody in my life, including myself, are all saying the same thing to me. And you know what it is? Dave, get back to short form content. It's actually what I like. I like doing the long things, the movies, but they're really long. They're really long. They're very stressful in some ways. You always have that dark night of the soul that I talked about a couple months ago, where you feel like you're not sure what you have. When I do short form content, you know, you can do the best you can and say, you know what, this is the best representation right now of what I'm capable of. Okay? And it succeeds or fails on that basis, right? Well, at a pretty low cost, because it only took you a day to do it, because it's a short form content. And I think that's right. If you do more of that, it's, you know, sometimes you're going to miss, sometimes you're going to fail. It's like, when I was thinking about it this morning, I was thinking about the difference between the opportunity we have right now on YouTube, the difference between it and old school development of TV shows or movies. The difference was that back in the old days, you would have to have millions of dollars, large teams, long time frames, and then equally large budgets on the back end to promote it. And if you created a piece of garbage, what did you do? You still promoted the daylights out of it because you had to recoup your investment. Extremely high risk proposition. Now that high risk proposition from yesteryear was offset by something. And what it was offset by was kind of an oligarchy climate where on the movie side you had theaters. So once you bought your ticket, you can't get your money back, right? So if the promotion and the poster did its job, you're hosed if the movie sucks. Television was kind of the same way because back in the day we only had 4 channels. When you saw television get really, in my opinion, television improved a lot in the 1990s. Well, why did that happen? Well, I believe it didn't happen because the technology got cheaper and more people could enter the fray and compete creating content. That's not what made television better in the 90s. What made television better was the fact that they had to get better because they were getting competition from platforms like this, as well as hundreds of alternative cable channels, right? Well, we have the same situation here on YouTube. We have a completely open-ended opportunity to create anything we want, and if we fail, we fail. And if it grabs, if we find the right thing, if it succeeds, it succeeds. Nobody gets the credit, nobody gets the blame except us. I'm here today to say, guys, I get the blame. I'm not doing as well here as I could be, and it's my fault. I think I kind of know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so now I'm going to scan back here a little bit. I really appreciate you guys hanging in here. It looks like most people are actually staying with me. Short form content is, I literally, in the last week, I've heard that from like 5 different places. Yeah, Dave. And in fact, I floated it to Valerie this morning. You know, I'm like, maybe she's going to be like, no, what are you thinking? You know, or something. I don't know. And I'm like, short form content. She's like, yeah. Okay. Remembering that you do have to sort your time efficiently. Okay, so Maria, that speaks to the problem and why I wanted to have this live stream today. Is that if I shift my direction a little bit to these other things, they take production time. To a degree, you might want to look over my shoulder and watch me do it. Okay, to a degree. But basically, there's only so many hours in the day. So if you say, in other words, if it was this simple, if it was as simple as saying, I'm going to work smarter and it means I'm going to do something different. Well, the fact that I'm doing something different means I can't do this other thing that I've been doing, right? There's only so many hours in the day. You have to pick. And at this point, if I'm going to pick, I want to pick what is going to facilitate growth. It makes sense to pick whatever is going to facilitate growth instead of just picking what I feel like doing, which is what I've been doing for the last year. Okay, so I keep going here with the comments. The problem is people's attention span is short, doesn't hit them right away. Agreed, Amar, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is how people are. I'm the same way. During COVID, our theater group set out tiny plays 1 to 2 pages long. They become a hit in our community. Not surprising. It's what people are tuned into. I can't even believe you guys are still watching me here today. It's been an hour. You need 20 stories, 18 will suck. Max, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Max. Absolutely right. When I think about my hero, Stephen J. Cannell, he's going to be the first guy to tell you back in the 80s, it was the same way. They churn out these shows, and you just can't get a hit every time. You just can't. And that's why he said, as a writer, I always tried to please myself because there's no way I can please 2 million viewers. I'm not going to make them all happy. So I have to make me happy, and then we'll see if, we'll see if it grabs. And in practice, what happens is some of it grabs and most of it doesn't. You know, it's the way it goes. So Max, I think you're completely right. And I'm kind of attracted at this point to the idea of trying more different things that are shorter. And Darren's saying the same thing. Even Darren is saying the same thing I'm hearing from everybody from all corners. Short form content is what I'm looking to with my little monster and friends. And in fact, it's exactly what I encouraged you to do when I made my comments the other day. I'm like, yeah, now just do something with it. Your consistency will draw and keep an audience. What do you believe the right thing to do is? May not be popular now, but people eventually realize it's right. What do you believe the right thing to do is? What I'm talking about today is in my heart of hearts what I actually believe the right thing to do is. And it also happens that it's the thing that resonates with me the most anyway. Now you can look at a long form project like Salt and Light in the same way. You just look at it as 400 little tiny short form, animations. And it actually has merit on that basis. It's the reason why I probably won't do it with Salt and Light because I already have distribution set up. But with the Akari anime thing, that thing was pretty good. And I got like 8 minutes of it done. Okay? I'm really thinking I want to release that here on YouTube, free as a bird, release the first 8 minutes, and if it grabs, then we'll do more with it. And if we fail, we fail. Who cares, right? It's just sitting on the shelf now. It's doing nothing, It seems stupid. So now you have animation quality that your audience can accept. Yes, thank you, Max. I've improved a bit in the last year. And if you did this before, you'd look like an amateur. If you did this before, you'd look like an amateur. Okay. I totally take your point, and I do agree with you. Thank you. I like that. Meat Canyon is way off. I would save the behind the scenes for Patreon. Okay, so you're saying behind the scenes. Can you expand on that, Amar? What do you mean by save behind the scenes for Patreon? I mean, I could see if you're going to create a behind the scenes docu about the creating of the show, then that really belongs associated with the release of the show, right? It doesn't really belong on. People want to see the final product, which is Saboteur. I agree. The great thing about short form content is you get the both. That's what's cool about. That's why I love Ed Tadeo's speed paints, is because you see the result, you see the accelerated version of how he got there, and then you see the result again. And I don't think in Ed's case he necessarily gives you a link to the long, because some of the stuff that he's posted took. Okay. You guys know what I'm trying to say. For me, if I release a speed paint, I'm also going to provide a link to the original live stream that it was derived from. Okay, but Yvette, what you're saying in your comment, release Salt and Light as serialized content, that I'm probably not going to do because, again, I kind of have the distribution already set up. But I think that doing that very thing with either the Akari anime thing or the Fan Futurama project, I think is exactly the right thing to do. Showing the process is for hardcore fans. And that's, by the way, as far as I can tell, that's who you guys are. Again, that's why I wanted to do this video today, is because I figured you guys would show up, and I'm really grateful that you did. Hey, Ashnan, thanks for being here. Well, the thing about Ed's a weird case, Amar, because Ed just released speed paints, and he built to 100,000 subs, and then he started engaging with his audience. And you know what? I have nothing but respect for what he's doing now. I think he's trying to find his way. He's trying to find his way between what got him there in the first place in terms of the subs, and now how to sort of monetize it and build a more of a community thing. And I think it's great. Okay, so that's what I'm doing with the Kindle Vella reading app. Okay, and Yvette, I don't know anything about that, but shoot me an email if you want. If you have any advice in terms of how you're building the combination of community around an actual product that you're selling, I would definitely be interested to know that. In fact, why don't you create a YouTube video about it? Maybe you already have, because that would be really valuable information. If it's working and you're seeing your numbers tick up, I think that's something that would be awesome to see. Okay, so the only Patreon I take part in is Nature and Humor Producer. He shares his. You also need to do your research for short videos. So Dead Pianist, right. One of the things that's consuming my time right now is research. That's why I mentioned Julian Shapiro earlier, because in the area of growth marketing. He's a pretty accomplished guy, and a lot of the things he says applies directly to growing anything. A YouTube channel, a media channel, anything. He got to 100,000 subs with one video, essentially, as far as I can see, and that was a half-naked girl. I don't know if I agree with that assessment. I know what video you're talking about, and that one is in his top 10 as far as views, but it's not the biggest, and plus it came later. He was really close to 100,000 subs before that video was done, I think. I'd have to go back and look for sure, but and I agree with you, Amar. This is what I was saying about Discord. I don't spend a lot of time on Discord because when I spend a lot of time on Discord, I wind up spending a lot of time on Discord. And all of a sudden, the day is gone. And it's a real danger for me because, as I said, I do like to answer questions. I do like to help people. When I was having the conversation on Discord with Tenpence the other day about 5.1 audio conversions, it went pretty deep, technically, and it was really fun to offer what insight I could from my experience doing 5.1 mixes, but again, it took quite a long time. So your channel is what I was searching for. So Golden Slime, if you get a chance and you go back and look at this again or whatever, the question that's coming to me right now vis-a-vis Golden Slime's comment is, would you really be missing the live streams if they were more occasional? Like, I'm thinking, like if you put a gun to my head and I have to decide right now, Dave, you got to make a decision. I'm going to start live streaming once, maybe twice a week. Okay? And I will let you know well in advance, and it'll probably be pretty long because it's going to be a recap of what's been going on that week in terms of the production, whatever that production might be. Probably it's still going to be mostly Salt and Light. And then something that I'm working on that day. And I'm thinking it would probably be maybe, okay, Darren, you're exhaustive with your information, so I'm sure that's correct. So 3.1 million is a lot of views. How about you do this? Streams the same way you've been doing, but then you make edited versions showing a week's progress like the speed paints you do. Okay, so Yash is kind of basically saying what I was already talking about doing. I mean, like, I kid you not, guys. It's already in progress. I will show you right now. If we switch over here, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what I'm doing. I'm taking this shot from the show, which I think is one of the better shots in the show. It just has a lot of charm and, blah, blah, blah. And I've already turned it into a 16x speed paint. And the thing that I learned from this already so far is that this is not something that I'm just going to be able to slough off like a hack. Because when I went through it, there are some real dead spots even in the speed paint, even though it's going by it at 15 times speed, there's some real dead spots. So I've already had to edit it, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to tease it at the beginning, and I want to get a proper logo in there. And so there you go. And then this video would show how it was done with a link to the longer live stream, which is already on my channel, that showed how this whole shot was created from start to finish, basically. It's like a 2-hour-long video. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. So Darren, blah, 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 and then did penis. I would like one live stream per month. Okay, thank you. Okay, everybody, do you guys agree with Dead Pianist? One long, like 3-hour live stream a month, is that enough? If one a week is enough, I'd be good with one a week. 2 a week seems almost like a little excessive, and probably if it was like Darren's Sunday thing where it's always at the same time, that would probably be good too. So please, you guys, weigh in. Let me know if you agree with Dead Pianist. More often, less often, whatever. Okay, Ajax, I'm looking at your comment. I don't know how true this is, but I heard it's better to have a separate channel for live streams because lots of non-viewed. Okay, and Ajax, that speaks back to what I was talking about, growth marketing. if you're going to A/B test, in other words, if I'm going to like if I'm going to take this video and actually post it, but I wanted to do growth marketing best practices, so I would actually post it on 2 different channels under 2 different titles with 2 different thumbnails, or whatever, and I would actually see which draws an audience better. Okay? Now, I can't do it the other way around, because on a new channel, I can't live stream because I haven't earned 400 hours of views and or whatever it is, 100 subscribers, right? So if I'm going to live stream, I have to do that here. So if I'm going to experiment with other things, I would actually be doing it on other channels, in addition to, of course, doing some of the short form content here as well. Okay, so thank you for that comment, Ajax. Darren just said, I just checked it out as you were talking. I didn't know that off by heart. Well, okay. I think you can get a finished piece every 2 weeks or at least once a month of solid animation of his skits. Okay. So that would be sort of the short form content that takes a little longer to do. A speed paint thing is pretty quick. I mean, I can create a speed paint video. I mean, assuming I already live streamed it and or just had the recorder going while I was working. A speed paint video at the end of the day is going to probably take 2 hours to edit and put together. It's pretty quick. But the short form content that's like animation might be take a little longer, right? Okay, so that would benefit your product and channel better. Okay, thank you, Amar. Believe me, I'm listening to everything you're saying, dude. And you can add time lapses in there as well if you like. Okay, so yes, if you're comfortable with a set schedule, that would be extremely useful. Well, see, one thing I was actually thinking the other day is maybe I should do a live stream with relatively short notice, but do it at 8 in the morning. Well, I've been doing 10 in the morning, but do one like at 7 in the morning, 10 in the morning, and 3 in the afternoon, and maybe even 7 p.m. Just to see, because you guys are literally all over the world, and there's probably different, people are different, tuning in for different times. I don't really want to suggest how often you stream, but a weekly stream could be good. It gives a consistency. So I'm going to write that down as kind of a strong endorsement, because the 2 things that are coming out of this that are totally jibing with what I've been hearing from other corners of my world, either friends or and my own research is to definitely do more short form, probably a weekly live stream. And again, that would basically recap what had been accomplished that week in conjunction with probably, dancing around on one shot the way I often do. Okay? So, I mean, we've probably beat this to death enough. Is there anything that I'm missing, you guys? Is there anything that I haven't considered that you guys would like me to think about or be aware of? Because, again, I'm going to say it again. This is my goal. And I said earlier, when I started here, I said, that I've been really fortunate in the media space, right? With my commercial clients, but it's sales that allowed me to pay my bills, and in the midterm, like around the year 2000 or so, it was really creating edutainment kind of stuff was really what I was all about before there was a YouTube, basically. I mean, I'm really thinking about in my history what's worked, what has worked and what has not worked. So only speed paints and short videos or some other content as well. I personally enjoy the live stream, so 1 a week sounds great. Okay. Do you guys want to tell me? I'm in the Eastern Standard Time in the United States, but what if you're going to be able to tune in, when should it be done? Because frankly, I mean, I work at home. So I can do it anytime. There really is no limit on me as far as when I do it. So, other than maybe I'm sleepy or something, but basically, when's a good time to do a live stream, or should I mix it up where I try at different times each week or something like that, if you guys have an idea about that. What I was going to say and didn't get around to finishing saying is my goal is asking you guys to help me help you achieve your goals, whatever your goals are. A good goal is actually to just be entertained. So if you enjoy the live streams from the standpoint, well, it's just fun. Sometimes you sort of talk crap, but it's kind of entertaining and helps me kill a few hours. That's perfectly fine if that's what you're getting out of it. It's great. No problem. It'll take time for coverage of the shorts counted in. The channels grow slow at first. Right. Now, I've got a little bit of a head start here, I suppose. And, you guys, all I can say is share the love, when I when I post something. Excuse me. But, so yeah, I will say I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And I really appreciate it. And, again, if there's anything, later times work for you. I'm going back to work for an animation company. Look at your YouTube analytics for the best time. That's a great thought, Yvette. Thank you. Of course. Well, that's another thing that I'm doing. That I've been so negligent on. I haven't done it at all. I basically haven't done it at all. I've gotten to 2,600 subs doing nothing. Okay, that's not that great, but it's okay, right? But when I look at the analytics as a businessman, it tells me, Dave, you're not doing anything right. Because what most of my views are coming from. Okay, so let me balance this out. Actually, I got to be careful here. Here's the reality: as far as on a weekly basis or whatever, most of the views do come from the live stream, but that's literally because of you guys. It's literally because a very small number of people actually sit through the whole thing, and that is wonderful. Okay. But if you look at, video view numbers, it's the short form content. It's either the speed paints or more usually it's actually the stuff like the open tunes, how to rig a character. It used to be more stuff that was Blender actually. But yeah, it's the how-to stuff is what people really, really see a lot, watch a lot. So once I discovered your channel, I wanted to shout about it, to share the over the shoulders and Animator Works. You have some great streams. Right. And I appreciate that, but at the same time, is there any value to this rationale, Darren? The rationale being this. There's 300, actually probably close to 400 of those videos on this channel. 400. There's probably nearly 1,000 hours of the over-the-shoulder stuff. It's not live, if I don't live stream, but almost 1,000 hours of it. Does that have value? And I mean, this is a sincere question here. Is it only the new, actual live stuff that has value? Or do you think that the legacy live streamed content has value as well? I suspect it's truly the live that matters. Along with you, Dave, is exactly what I'm looking for as a learning animator. Okay. Well, we are not going to jettison the live stream, but I think cutting it down to once or twice a week, maybe twice a week, where I actually do 2 different time frames, might be an interesting. And now, Tom, now you're getting into something that I've been wanting to do more of. I mean, I've got a friend that was instrumental, frankly, in me ever getting my opportunity to make live action films, who has, a platform just like that. That's a Q&A, conversation type thing. And now that I actually have a respectable, 500 megabit internet connection, I actually could pull that off. I would love to do that. You guys, I mean, I say that to any and all of you guys, that it would be really interesting if you have ideas and opinions and you're actually doing some work that you think would be interesting to share. I would have a blast doing like an hour or 2 long live stream where we actually have a couple talking heads and go over either just argue about whatever the topic is at that day, or else review the stuff you guys are working on. I think it's great. Right. Yeah, and I'm reading your last comment, Darren. Yeah, so I need to experiment, obviously. That's the whole point of, what I was talking about, growth marketing. It's all about testing and see what grabs and see what works, and then, just be pragmatic. And if it's not working, change it. That's why I'm here today, because I'm going, it's kind of sort of worked. And as you guys are making clear in your comments, there's things about it that work. But as far as somebody who's trying to grow a YouTube channel and make it increasingly viable, not just on its own merits as a business thing, but also from the standpoint of how it supports my creative efforts going forward. I mean, if we ever get around to getting this Fan Futurama thing going, I'd love to be able to get something out there that's getting 1 million views, and really changing the world with it. You know what I mean? It's cool to be able to do that. Like a panel. Yeah, StreamYard is great for them. Okay. I'm thinking one stream to draw and another is a review. Okay. Let me write that down. I think that's an interesting opinion that I tend to agree with. Weekly live stream and then maybe a Q&A or a guest kind of situation. I certainly would do that with you. And so for example, just as an example, I would find it very interesting to do a live stream together with you, Darren, where we talk about the pathway of someone like yourself who, my impression is you're not like me, where I was I was always the best artist in school kind of thing, and I was always a cartoonist, even though I kind of neglected it for almost 30 years while I was doing other things, including filmmaking, right? But, for someone who wasn't that guy, the whole thing of what attracted you to animation of all things and some of the challenges you faced, and yet the contribution you've been able to make to the community, those are all really interesting things to look at and talk about that would probably, and it's a kind of an opportunity to tell your story. I think that'd be awesome. Let's do that. I'd like to say, be brutally honest, if the goal is for okay, I would like to say this, to be brutally honest. If the goal is for it to be an animation channel, then you need to find a way to make sure animation is shown in some way. I agree with you. Now, that is the if. And for the most part, for the last couple of years, that has been precisely the goal. Let's say before 3 years ago, that was not the goal. That's not what this channel was about at all. It's almost like an animation studio putting animation content on their channel. Right, I understand. So, Animation Overload. Hey there, Dave. How are you? I'm doing okay. I appreciate you being here today, Animation Overload. It seems to me I looked at your channel just recently. I have to refresh my memory, though. So, forgive me as I check. What the heck was it? I looked. There it is. Oh yeah, seems like maybe you asked some question and I answered it or something the other day. I don't know. But anyway, thanks for stopping by. Okay, critique is a very popular item on YouTube. Okay. Critique meaning. Can you expand on that, Maria? And Blifton says, I'm doing a comic using 3D. It's more work than I thought. Yeah, well. Everything in the animation space is pretty much more work than you thought. It's a beautiful thing and it's an evolving thing. If you look at what I was doing a year ago, yep. Well, and this is another thing about how I use my time. Back in the day when I was creating Blender training videos, I was also writing articles for 3D Artist magazine. I was just talking to Val about this. It's interesting that, to my surprise, even though I was writing articles about Blender for 3D Animation magazine for about 6 months, like almost every month I had articles, long articles, 2-3 page tutorial type articles. And it was interesting that this gets back to growth marketing. What was interesting is that those articles accomplished absolutely nothing in terms of spiking the sales of my Blender training videos. And I thought for sure they'd make a big difference because they even let me plug the videos in the magazine. But it was one of those things where you think it's going to happen and it didn't at all. It was completely useless in terms of my end sales of training videos. The video sold okay, but it was really shocking that being an author in 3D Artist magazine made absolutely no difference. It's like worthless. But you know, I'm always a little bit I'm reticent to play this card or this angle, but the angle of the one-man animation studio, the guy who can do it all. Yeah, right. Okay, you know, I get that because I've spent a lot of my life trying to learn how to do it all. But, you know, to some of the publications that are out there, either on the web or even, you know, paper magazines, that angle might be kind of interesting. You know, what I'm doing. And I just haven't put any effort recently into reaching out to whoever, you know, because that's what I'm most comfortable with, is actually reaching out in person. Like doing social networking and or like social ads. You know, it's not that I'm not willing to do it, but it has zero interest for me, right? I was always pick up the phone and make a phone call and just talk to a human being, and that was what worked for me, you know, so I expect that, you know, it will continue to. Okay, so Darren, if I may, I like that. If I may, if you're looking to understand how to improve your channel, then Film Booth makes great videos showing what works. Okay, so Darren's speaking right back to, again, the reason why I did this video today, is that I feel like there's there's a reasonable amount of research about these best practices that I really want to go back and do right now. You know, go back and just give some time to learning and then saying, okay, based on what I learned today in the book I read or whatever, how does that compare to what I've been doing? Okay, and so therefore, what might I do differently based on what I'm learning here, right, is, you know, best practices or whatever. So Maria, I was responding to Tom's comment about mine, but I will say that I see a lot of videos critiquing books, films. Yes, okay, and by the way, I'm going to write that down. And the reason I'm going to write it down is because I love that stuff. Okay, so I would love, when you talk about the history, when you talk about the history of animation, comics, you know, I think about the impact that guys like John Buscema and Frank Frazetta had on me when I was in high school, and sort of the history, you know, the Marvel bullpen, what that really was and really wasn't, because the mythology doesn't match up to the history. You know, when you look at all these kinds of things, to me it's all really interesting and a lot of fun to explore. And that in the context oftentimes of critiquing or looking at a book that's been written about it, or a video that came out, or something, things like that. So I think the whole critique thing, and of course an emphasis on animation is probably the right choice. We talked a little bit yesterday on Darren's live stream about Ralph Bakshi, you know, and his work. You know, what's good or bad about that. So once before, your story didn't help with the sales. That's true, Max. Max is weighing in with a very, very good point. Max is saying, just hold on half a second here, Dave. You're talking about a pretty small data set. One experience. You're right. Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. And yet you think this time your story will help you with the sales. Well, yes and no. Yes and no. I'm looking at, okay, so I want to look at what Max just said, you guys, and backpedal a couple steps and explain something. What part of the driver here in my thinking had to do with looking at crowdfunding and looking at rewards. Okay? Now, Maria and Max are probably... did I miss your comment? I'm sorry. About targeting other industries? I did see that. I'm sorry, I didn't mention it. About networking. Right. All of these things are things I'm kind of stoked to do right now. And the reason, I want to get back to Max's comment though. Here's what happened. I'm looking at crowdfunding and I'm looking at the rewards. Okay? I'm looking at the rewards and I'm going, I don't want to just give a reward. I want to give something that I'm sure really has value. Right? And typically that's some kind of product. It doesn't have to be. If it's a reward on a crowdfund, it might be a freaking, you know, digital wallpaper for your computer. I get that, okay? But I'm thinking about the rewards and I'm thinking, you know, I've spent my whole life creating intellectual property products. That's what I've done. I mean, that's what a movie is, right? It's just I've created short ones too. Okay? And I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, if you're going to create a product that has real value, why don't you just create the product now? And if you're selling the product or finding ways to monetize, then why do you have to crowdfund? It's not that it's a bad idea. It's probably a really good idea. But I'm just saying all these thoughts are going through my mind. I'm going, geez, Dave, if you just do what you know, you're talking about networking. I mean, my whole career has been built on person-to-person sales, talking to someone on the phone. That's what I do, and I like people. I do. I have a limited tolerance. I am actually fundamentally an introvert, believe it or not, in my personality, but it's really weird. If you look at the Myers-Briggs test, I am one of the rare ones, okay? Because I really ride the straddle between extrovert and introvert. So I'm really good with people, but when I run out of gas and I'm ready to get away from it, I'm done. I need to get away, right? So I don't know if that matters or is helpful to anyone, but I knew about 200 authors that would watch How to Make a Book Trailer. You can do shirts, sketchbooks with your art on it. Yeah, absolutely. As far as rewards go, yeah, I agree. I thought about that. As far as rewards on a crowdfund go, there are basically 3 tiers. There's kind of nonsense rewards that are digital assets that are essentially free to give away, and that can include things like it can include things like early access, to a digital download, right? As I said, digital wallpaper, things like that. Maybe if there's an ebook of some kind, the digital version of that. So those are kind of the low tier rewards. The high tier rewards are things like an actual credit, like an associate producer credit, and possibly using someone's voice in a cameo in an episode, things like that, or at a certain level, actually making a caricature of a person in the style of Salt and Light and actually putting them in the show. That would be for the very, very rare person who gave like $5,000 or something, to a crowdfund. It's the rewards in the middle that were bugging me. It's the stuff in the middle that can be really good value added stuff, that goes pretty much speaks to that $100 number, because as I said, usually with these crowdfunds, 25 is and 100 are the big number. That's what people give mostly, is 25 and 100. My advice is to do creative editing to build shorts. Continue this tempo of drawing because you need the skill. I agree. I'm still improving every day, dude. If you stretch yourself on 10 different things, you'll lose progress in animation. That is true as well. Get that skill in your hand. It's so easy to use. Whatever you do is extra stuff to what you're doing now. Okay, so Max is actually making a very good point, a really good point, and I haven't talked much about it, but it is top of the mind, because as I talk about these things, the question becomes, at the end of the day, here's what the question becomes right now. Where is your time going? And if you make some adjustments, how does that change where your time is going? And then what gets harmed? What gets created that has new potential versus what gets harmed and either slowed down or ground to a halt because you're being pulled in 15,000 different directions. So that's excellent. Signed DVD, yeah, animation overload. So that would be one of those mid-tier rewards, typically. Like a $50 or something, I guess. I'd have to go back and look at some of the other ones that have done well to remember. But yeah, it would be like a signed DVD, which is essentially kind of a nonsense keepsake, since nobody really does DVDs anymore in the real marketplace to speak of. Little bit on the low end, like at Walmart or whatever, in the $5 bin. But I mean, basically, people aren't buying DVDs anymore. But yeah, that would certainly be. You can cut and create shorts from existing stuff and make it into different dialogue or different meaning. Yeah, and creatively, let me just put it this way, you guys. When you talk about if I'm stopping everything and I'm totally rebooting my life, right? What would I do? if I was totally rebooting my life, what I would be doing is short form content, which are projects that take somewhere between 1 day and 1 week. And they would be done, and they'd be behind me. They would not tend to be things like Salt and Light that can take a year, or if I was really working on it full time with total focus, it would still take 3-4 months easy to do a whole episode, which is still pretty fast for an animated show, but it's still kind of a long time, right? So so you're saying you're at least 3 months away from what you were just talking right now. Can you clarify that? You're at least 3 months away from like DVDs and other stuff. You'll have months to think about. Yeah, that's true. Well, as far as a launch, as far as a crowdfund or rewards or any of that, that's true. You know? So it's one of the things that I don't like about crowdfunding. Okay? And I talked about it the other day because there are crowdfunds that are in the animation arena that have done really, really well, and years later they still haven't delivered a product, and it really offends me. Just saying. I much prefer the idea that again, this gets back to why I was thinking about it. I thought about a crowdfund. I said, well, if I was going to do a crowdfund my way, how would I do it? Well, I would say if you give me $25, you're not going to wait 4 months for your reward. I would like it better if you get your reward now. You give the money, you get the reward. To me, that makes more sense. Well, that's called selling a product, right? And I don't, and to indict myself, if the truth be known, the movie I crowdfunded took like a couple years to actually finish. And I regret that. A lot of people were really, really patient. So the guy I'm picking on, I was that guy once. And there's a bit of a long story behind why that happened, but reward or shorts, people want content. Okay. What if you recorded yourself drawing digitally? You can make multiple videos in a day or two and spread them out over what time you want. That's kind of what I've been doing with the live streaming. So I don't know how much of my content you've looked at Animation Overload, but that's basically what I've been doing for the past year. Is when I'm working now, admittedly, especially today, all I'm doing is looking at the screen and talking. But basically that's what I've done, is just capture the process of creating animation. As I also said, and by the way, I should make a note on this as well, is I'm just putting next to the live stream just the word planned. When I've sat down and made a tick list of half a dozen specific things I'm going to cover and do in the live streaming session, I've had a tendency to be way more concise, ramble a lot less, and I think it's just been better content. Even if it's still pretty long, even if it's a couple hours, it tends to be packed with good information and whatnot. So, are we good? Is this a good place to wrap it up? You guys, feel free to comment, and if somebody has a strong opinion and wants to write a long comment, do it. I'm down with it. I read them all, and some of you guys are, you really think about this stuff. Not necessarily for me, but you're a creative community. You guys are all creative people. God, talk about getting split in 15 different directions. The collaborative aspect, it's a two-edged sword and it's dangerous. It can go sideways pretty easily. But the collaborative aspect is also very, very interesting. It would be really neat if all of the people that come to my channel with all of your different talents could somehow throw all of our skills in a pool and not just to sort of grease the skids creatively, but actually to create products, whatever those products might be, Because it seems to me, I could be wrong, but it seems to me there's a lot of people that would look at a channel like mine that's what they want to do. They want to create a product. They want to be able to take a deep breath and say, okay, now I can just do my artsy fartsy thing that I love. I can just do what I love, and it's actually, kind of sort of paying my bills. Am I wrong? Will you guys help me out here? Am I wrong? Is that the Holy Grail? For the people that look at my content, is that the Holy Grail, is to be able to support yourself doing creative work? Or am I wrong and I'm missing it and this is not who you guys are? Or because I think most of you are not already that person, I suspect. And to be perfectly candid, I am that person. I've supported myself working out of my house for 30 years, creating media. True, once you commit yourself, you need to provide the content. Okay, so Max said, okay, I'm going to go back and read Max's whole sequence there. Creative editing to build shorts, continue this tempo of drawing. Okay, so he's basically saying, you still got some improvement there on the animation side of things there, Dave. Fair enough, Max. Go kick it, buddy. Go kick it. You're already doing that, but yeah, excellent. I'm so glad, Yvette. I didn't know. I didn't know, but I think that I'm just really proud of you that you're doing that, and I hope it's going well. And Max, I don't know if Max is still here, but I'm gonna be less time here to annoy less. I don't find your comments annoying at all. So Maria's saying, true, once you commit yourself, you need to provide. Oh, okay, so talking about crowdfunding and delivering the goods. Absolutely. Well, that's the reason I waited so long to even do a crowdfund or even talk about it, is I wanted to get the show almost done-ish, And so you guys can take today's conversation is me officially retreating from any specific commitment about when I'm going to launch a crowdfund, and I'm probably going to talk about it less. And here's why. I know I'm going to do it, but I feel like I got to get some infrastructure in place. I think there's some marketing skills that I need to tune up. I think there's some content that I need to create that won't take very long, because it is short form content that's going to be fun to do and is going to expand my viewership. But to Maria's comment, yeah, I wanted to be way ahead of the curve. I wanted to have a big head start so that I knew that when I start really talking about asking people to support me or root for me, that they know darn well I'm going to deliver. And I know I've talked about that before. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal to me because I've seen others not do that. I've seen others, they make hundreds of thousands of dollars and then nothing, just nothing for years. And I'm like, how do you do that? I don't get it. I don't get that at all. Okay, so Amar says you can also add in there animation critique. Yes, and absolutely, that's true. And that's fun to do. You run the risk of getting copyright strikes. So that's the basic... the reason I've hesitated to do that, I've really wanted to do that, and I've hesitated because it will get you copyright strikes. For me, it's doing the animation stuff, not necessary to make a living. Okay. People will support Cyanide and Happiness if they put out their movie now. Yeah, that's right. Now, I think you're right, and again, I've thought about that in regard to not just Salt and Light, but other projects where it's like, geez, man, let's just put it out there and let people grab it, and then once it's got a little traction, then think about asking them to support you going forward. The Don Bluth movie is one of the ones that has failed to deliver on their promise in a big way. And I have nothing but non-respect for Don Bluth at this time for that reason. Don Bluth, yeah, I don't have much respect for that guy. Sorry to itch my nose in front of everybody. Dragon's Lair. Yeah, it took at least 3 years, but they were working on those jokes daily. Right, and you're talking about Cyanide and Happiness. Yeah, and I tell you, that's really, really good content. You know, it's simple. The characters obviously are stupidly simple, but boy, they do a really nice job with it. So anyway, I'm gonna wrap up there. I'm pushing 2 hours here, and wow. Okay. Okay. Oh, you're talking about The Simpsons? Now, you wrote Simpsons with a Y. Was that deliberate? Are you talking about The Simpsons, or are you talking about something else? Do you do something like mind mapping, concept mapping, Dave, to put all these ideas down? Oh, dude. Tom, you know what? I was joking to my son the other day, is that if you were going to identify what actually would be my unique contribution to the world, what it would be this. I don't actually want everybody to read this, so, but it would be what I call the spiral notebook, which is basically journaling, where part of the journaling is I'll draw cartoons and they actually argue with each other and have a, so I kind of reason things out and debate, and it's a mix of so anyway, you guys, everybody's splitting and gotten the vibe that I really am, in fact, going to end this. So I will do that. But yeah, I do, Tom. I journal a lot, both digitally on my laptop and also on paper, in order to really grok out what is going on in my own mind, what my own motivations are, why I do what I do, what I care about, what my goals are, every single day. And that's one of the reasons why I'm kind of here today, is because what I've been doing in the live streaming is sometimes seems like it devolves into something that's a lot more rambling and frenetic than the way I really kind of prefer to operate. Having a visual reference is useful as you refine the things you like. Yeah, things like this. Yes. Get others up to speed on what was already covered. Yeah. Right on. So anyway, with that, I will wrap it up, and I see some of you guys have already said, see ya! So the next video will probably be that speed paint thing, and then I'll think about the, I'll have a, thanks, Darren, I'm reading Darren's comment, have a listen. Give some thought to the timing of the live stream and try to let you guys know well ahead of time when it's going to happen. So with that, I will sign off. And as you guys know, I ain't lying. There will be more later.